The discipline blueprint. Control your mind before it controls you. You are not tired. You are undisciplined. Your mind isn't weak, it's untrained. You have spent years obeying your emotions, reacting instead of commanding, surrendering instead of leading. But that ends today. This audiobook is your blueprint for mental control. The same framework used by warriors, leaders, and elite performers to stay sharp when the world falls apart. From this moment forward, you will stop negotiating with your feelings and start executing with discipline. This is not motivation. This is mental reprogramming. Welcome to the Discipline Blueprint. Chapter 1. Stop negotiating with yourself. You know exactly what needs to be done. You've known it for a long time. But every morning, you wake up and enter the same mental debate. Should I get up now or in 5 minutes? Should I go to the gym or maybe tomorrow? Should I work on my goal or scroll for a while first? That debate is the enemy. That debate is where discipline dies. Discipline begins when the negotiation ends. Your mind is a brilliant manipulator. It knows how to disguise weakness as logic. It will tell you, you deserve a break. It will tell you, it's okay to skip just one day. It will whisper, you've worked hard enough. That voice is not your ally. That voice is the salesman of mediocrity. And every time you buy what it sells, you delay your own evolution. You don't need another plan. You don't need another motivational quote. You need command. You need to say, I don't feel like it. I do it anyway. That's the mantra. That's the code. That's the first law of discipline. Because discipline is not about how you feel. It's about what you decide. The emotion says, rest. The decision says, rise. The emotion says, skip it. The decision says, show up. You have a choice every moment, every day. Do you act according to your feelings or according to your purpose? That's the key. When a Navy SEAL's alarm goes off at 4:30 in the morning, he doesn't ask himself if he wants to get up. He doesn't debate whether it's fair or convenient or fun. He just moves, because to him, hesitation is death. In a crisis, leaders don't sit around negotiating with fear or uncertainty. They act. They rely on training, not emotion. They execute on what's required, not what's comfortable. That's how you must treat your life. You're not training for comfort. You're training for control. You are training your mind to obey you. Every time you delay action, you strengthen your weakness. Every time you command action, you strengthen your control. Every small act of self-command rewires your brain. You stop being the slave to emotion. You start being the architect of direction. And that's the entire purpose of discipline, to shift control back to you. Think about how much time you've wasted in negotiation. You tell yourself, I'll start when I feel ready. You wait for the spark, the motivation, the perfect mood. But readiness never comes. Readiness is a trap. Do you think soldiers in war feel ready every morning? Do you think entrepreneurs feel inspired every day to push through rejection? Do you think disciplined people wake up wanting to do hard things? No, they don't. They simply refuse to negotiate. They made a rule, emotion has no vote. When you live by that rule, your life becomes simpler. You remove the noise. You remove the inner courtroom where your goals are always on trial. You stop asking for your own permission. You wake up and move. You schedule the work and finish it. You plan the workout and complete it. You say what you'll do, and you do it. Not because it's easy, not because it feels good, but because you said you would. That's what separates leaders from followers. That's what separates warriors from wanderers. Discipline is not about punishment. It's about freedom. Freedom from guilt. Freedom from doubt. Freedom from the exhausting conversation with your weaker self. Every time you negotiate, you delay mastery. You tell yourself, maybe later, and later never comes. You tell yourself, just 5 more minutes, and 5 minutes becomes 50. And you wonder why your goals remain fantasies. It's not because you're lazy. It's because you're still arguing with yourself. You're still giving emotion a vote in a decision it has no business influencing. Stop asking. Start commanding. The body obeys when the mind decides. You think you're tired, but you're not. You're undisciplined. You think you're unmotivated, but you're not. You're untrained. And training starts now. So here's the system. When your mind says no, your body moves yes. When your feelings say not today, Your discipline says now. When your comfort begs later, your commitment says immediately. You execute on command. This isn't just about mornings or workouts. This is about life. The principle applies everywhere. At work, when you don't want to focus. In relationships, when you want to react emotionally. In failure, when you want to give up. In every moment, the question remains the same. Who's in charge? You or your emotions? When you stop negotiating, you remove 90% of your problems. Indecision disappears. Doubt loses its power. Time becomes your ally instead of your enemy. Look at any top performer, athlete, artist, soldier, or CEO. They all have one thing in common. They execute without permission. They don't wait to feel good before doing what must be done. They simply act. That's not luck. That's mental conditioning. You could train that same control. You train it every time you act without a feeling. You train it every time you show up anyway. You train it every time you refuse to argue with your weakness. And the more you do it, the stronger it becomes. You don't need motivation. You need a rule. Here's the rule. When I say I'll do it, it's already done. No more debate. No more waiting. No more asking your emotions for permission. Because when you negotiate, you lose momentum. And when you lose momentum, you lose identity. Your brain remembers who you are based on what you repeat. If you repeat delay, you become delay. If you repeat command, you become command. That's how discipline rewires the mind, through consistency of command. So stop waiting to feel ready. Readiness is not your responsibility. Execution is. And when you execute, everything changes. From this day forward, you live by a new standard. Emotion has no vote. Comfort has no seat at the table. Excuses have no microphone. You say it, you do it. You commit, you follow through. You fall, you rise immediately. This is how discipline begins. Not through inspiration, through command. You're not here to feel better. You're here to get better. You're not here to be comfortable. You are here to be in control. And that control begins the moment you stop negotiating with yourself. You've learned the first rule of command, execution without emotion. You've taken back the steering wheel from the voice that kept you weak. Now it's time to go deeper. Because once you stop negotiating, you must replace motivation with something stronger, structure. You've mastered your hesitation. Now, let's master your focus. Chapter 2, The Lie of Motivation. You've been told your whole life that motivation is the secret. That if you can just get inspired enough, you'll finally act. That one powerful quote, one speech, one video will flip a switch in your brain and make everything easy. That's the lie. Motivation is not power. Motivation is permission, and you don't need permission. Motivation is a spark. Discipline is the engine. And the world doesn't reward sparks. It rewards engines that run no matter what. Here's the truth. You will not always feel ready. You will not always feel inspired. You will not always wake up with energy, confidence, or excitement. But you still have to move. Because readiness isn't something you wait for. It's something you earn through motion. That's the key. You say, I need to feel ready. No, you need start. You say, I'm not in the mood. No, you need to move. You say, I don't know where to begin. No, you begin anyway. That's how warriors operate. That's how disciplined minds function. Action first, feeling later. Because once you act, your brain catches up. Once you start moving, momentum takes over. Once you execute, confidence builds itself. You've been trained to chase motivation, to wait for it like rain in a drought. You scroll through quotes, listen to speeches, fill your head with other people's energy. But you can't build a life on borrowed fuel. Motivation fades. Discipline doesn't. Motivation is emotional. Discipline is structural. Motivation depends on mood. Discipline depends on command. You can't build greatness on emotion. You build it on structure. That's why the people who win in the long run are not the ones who get hyped. They're the ones who get up. They don't need music. They don't need coffee. They don't need inspiration. They have a standard. They don't wait for the right feeling. They create the right motion. Because motion always precedes emotion. Let me give you an example. An Olympic sprinter doesn't wake up every day excited to train. They wake up and execute the routine anyway. Why? Because they understand one thing. Discipline makes motivation irrelevant. The soldier doesn't go into battle because he feels brave. He goes because he's trained to move when it's time. The writer doesn't finish the book because she's inspired every morning. She finishes because she sits down and writes when no one's watching. That's what separates professionals from amateurs. Professionals act regardless of feeling. Amateurs wait to feel before acting. You have a choice. You can chase the spark, or you can build the engine. If you chase the spark, you'll spend your life starting over. If you build the engine, you'll spend your life advancing forward. The spark feels good. It lights up your brain, gives you hope, gives you adrenaline. But when the spark fades, you'll need another one, and another, and another. Motivation addicts are everywhere. They live in cycles of excitement and collapse. They rise fast, fall faster, and wonder why nothing sticks. Because sparks don't build endurance. Sparks don't build strength. Engines do, and that engine is discipline. Here's the truth you must burn into your mind. Action creates clarity. Clarity creates strength. Strength destroys excuses. Say it again. Action creates clarity. Clarity creates strength. Strength destroys excuses. You don't think your way into discipline. You act your way into it. Action gives you data. Data gives you direction. Once you move, you see where to go. Once you start, your next step becomes visible. But most people stay stuck because they refuse to move until they feel ready. Ready for what? Ready to be perfect? Ready to be fearless? Ready to never fail? That readiness doesn't exist. If you wait to feel ready, you'll wait forever. Readiness is not the cause of action. It's the result of it. You don't feel confident before you start. You feel confident because you started. You don't feel motivated before you act. You feel motivated because you acted. It's not about waiting for the emotion. It's about generating it through movement. Every disciplined person knows this. Feelings follow motion. You act first, and then the feeling comes. You move first, and then the energy comes. You start the work, and then the motivation arrives, not before. That's why disciplined people seem unstoppable. They don't depend on an emotional state to perform. They depend on the system they built. Think about the gym. The hardest part is not the workout. It's putting on your shoes. It's walking out the door. Once you start moving, you find rhythm. Once you find rhythm, you find energy. But if you sit there negotiating, you'll lose the battle before it begins. You'll tell yourself, I'll go when I feel motivated. But the secret is this. The action of going creates the motivation. It's a reverse process. The world taught you backward. You don't get motivated and then move. You move and then get motivated. That's the rewiring that turns you from emotional to disciplined. Motivation asks for comfort. Discipline demands consistency. Motivation reacts. Discipline commands. Motivation talks. Discipline acts. And the world rewards one thing: consistency. No one cares how inspired you felt when you started. They care that you finished. They care that you delivered. They care that you showed up again and again when others disappeared. Consistency beats intensity. Structure beats inspiration. Discipline beats motivation. Every single time. So how do you live this? You create a rule. Action first, emotion later. That's it. That's the system. When your mind says, I'm not in the mood, say, I don't need the mood. When your brain says, maybe tomorrow, say no now. When your body says, I'm tired, say, I'm trained. You lead the feeling. You don't follow it. That's how you break the addiction to motivation. You stop being a reactor and start being a commander. Because your brain is a follower. It follows orders. If you wait for it to tell you when to move, it will never give permission. But if you command it with authority, it obeys. You become your own engine. The world is full of people waiting for motivation, waiting for signs, waiting for energy, waiting for alignment. And while they wait, the disciplined few move quietly ahead, taking the opportunities others delay. They build while others hesitate. They execute while others scroll. They finish while others dream. That's the difference between talking about change and becoming change. You don't need to be motivated. You need to be consistent. You don't need to be inspired. You need to be intentional. You don't need the spark. You need the engine. That's the secret they won't tell you because it sounds too simple. But the truth is always simple. You just have to be strong enough to accept it. You have a choice. You can stay stuck in the lie of motivation, or you can build the engine of discipline. You can keep chasing the spark, or you can start moving now and never stop. That's the blueprint. That's the power. Because when you stop waiting to feel ready, you start living ready. You've learned to stop chasing motivation. Now it's time to control the emotion that breaks most people's progress. Reaction. You've built momentum. Now let's master calm. Chapter 3. Emotional control is a weapon. Your emotions are powerful. They can build you, or they can break you. They can push you forward or pull you apart. But here's the truth. Emotional mastery isn't about feeling nothing. It's about acting despite feeling everything. You don't need to be emotionless. You need to be in control. Emotional control is not suppression. Suppression is weakness disguised as strength. Suppression buries emotion until it explodes later. Control is power. Control means emotion exists, but you decide what happens next. That's the difference between a reactive mind and a disciplined one. A reactive mind feels and flinches. A disciplined mind feels and acts. That's the weapon. Imagine you're a soldier holding the line under fire. Bullets are flying. Fear is real. Adrenaline is surging. But the mission doesn't stop because of emotion. You don't get to yell, panic, or freeze. You don't get to quit because you're scared. You feel the fear, and you advance anyway. That's emotional control in its purest form. It's not that fear disappears. It's that discipline takes command. It's the mind saying, I hear you. I feel you. But we're still moving forward. That's power. That's leadership. That's control. The undisciplined let emotion dictate direction. The disciplined let direction dictate emotion. Most people are emotional slaves. They live on autopilot, pulled by whatever they feel in the moment. They feel angry. They lash out. They feel sad. They stop showing up. They feel afraid. They retreat. They feel insecure. They start seeking attention. And then they wonder why their life never stabilizes. Because every time you obey emotion, you give away command. You can't build an empire on emotional chaos. You can't lead yourself if you can't lead your feelings. Control your emotions, and you control your behavior. Control your behavior, and you control your outcomes. That's the chain of power. The Stoics understood this centuries ago. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire while facing betrayal, war, and disease. Yet his writings show a man calm, centered, and grounded. Why? Because he lived by a simple principle. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. That's Stoicism, emotional control as strategy. When something happened, he didn't ask, why me? He asked, what now? He didn't seek to erase emotion. He sought to master his response. And that's what you must learn, to respond, not react. Reactions are impulsive. Responses are intentional. Reactions are emotion-led. Responses are discipline-led. You don't need to kill your emotion. You need to train it to obey your mission. Think of martial artists, true masters of mind and body. When they face an opponent, they are calm, still, focused. They don't fight with anger. They fight with precision. Their mind is quiet. Their breath steady. Their movements efficient. They don't waste energy on rage or panic. Why? Because they understand that emotion clouds judgment. A still mind sees clearly. A sharp mind reacts strategically. That's why emotional control is a weapon. It gives you clarity when others crumble. In chaos, most people freeze. They panic. They overreact. But the calm one, the disciplined one, becomes the anchor. When everyone else loses focus, you hold it. When everyone else loses composure, you stay centered. When everyone else loses direction, you act decisively. That's leadership. That's control. Here's the reality. You cannot stop emotion from coming. You will feel anger. You will feel fear. You will feel doubt. But those emotions are not instructions. They are signals. You decide how to interpret them. Anger can be used as energy. Fear can be used as awareness. Doubt can be used as preparation. Emotion is information. Discipline is interpretation. Don't let the emotion write your story. Let it inform your strategy. That's emotional control. Emotional weakness shows up everywhere. In relationships, at work, in crisis. You react too fast. You say things you don't mean. You quit when things get uncomfortable. And then regret follows. Regret is the tax you pay for emotional reaction. You can't undo words once they're spoken. You can't reverse actions done in anger. You can't rebuild trust after emotional collapse. So train yourself to pause. Just pause. That split second between feeling and reaction. That's where mastery lives. The weak react instantly. The disciplined pause, breathe, and then respond with intention. You don't need to be robotic. You need to be precise. Control begins with awareness. Start watching your emotional patterns. Ask yourself, when do I lose control? What triggers me? What stories do I tell myself when emotion hits? Because emotion itself isn't the problem. Your response to it is. When you feel anger rising, remind yourself, pause. Don't react. When fear creeps in, say, I can act anyway. When doubt whispers, say, I hear you, but I'm still moving. You create a new identity, the calm operator. Still mind. Sharp response. That becomes your mantra. Repeat it until it becomes instinct. Because instinct replaces emotion only through repetition. Let's make this practical. You're in a heated argument. Your heart rate spikes. Your first urge is to defend, attack, or escape. Instead, stop. Take one breath. Drop your shoulders. Lower your voice. You'll instantly change the power dynamic. You'll take command of the room, not through aggression, but through composure. That's emotional control in motion. Or picture this. Your business deal fails, your plan collapses, everything seems off track. The average person spirals. The disciplined person resets. They don't ask, why me? They ask, what now? Emotion says panic. Discipline says adapt. That's how calm minds win in chaos. Control your emotions, and you control time. Because emotion rushes you. Emotion wants you to act now, react now, decide now. But discipline slows the frame. It gives you space to think, to choose, to act intelligently. And that's what makes you dangerous. Not your speed, not your aggression, but your composure. When others are emotional, you are strategic. When others are reactive, you are deliberate. When others are storm, you are stillness. That's power. That's what makes you untouchable. Remember this truth. Emotional control doesn't mean you don't feel. It means you don't fold. You can feel fear and still move. You can feel anger and still choose calm. You can feel doubt and still execute. That's what separates discipline from emotion. Action independent of feeling. You have a choice. You can keep living as a hostage to your emotions, or you can become their commander. That's the weapon the world can't take from you. You've learned to control your emotion, to act, not react, to pause, not panic, to lead your feelings instead of following them. But now it's time to confront the next enemy of discipline, boredom. Because even the most controlled mind collapses without endurance. You've mastered your emotion. Now let's master repetition. Chapter 4. The power of boring repetition. Discipline isn't built in moments of excitement. It's forged in boredom. Most people don't fail because they're lazy. They fail because they're bored. They want passion, stimulation, instant results. But true growth lives in monotony, in the silent, unglamorous repetition of fundamentals. The gym is quiet when the crowd leaves. The field is empty when the cameras stop rolling. That's where real discipline begins, in the echo of your own persistence. Because repetition is the crucible of mastery. You've heard it before. Repetition is mastery. But repeat this mantra until it burns into your nervous system. Repetition is mastery. Repetition is identity. Repetition is control. Say it again, slower, sharper. Repetition is mastery. Repetition is identity. Repetition is control. You become what you repeat. Not what you occasionally do, not what you dream of doing, but what you consistently do even when it feels pointless. That's why repetition is sacred. It's not glamorous. It's not thrilling. But it's the only path to control, to skill, to power. Think of an athlete, a boxer, a basketball player, a martial artist. They don't just train when they feel like it. They drill the same motion 1,000 times until it becomes instinct. The boxer throws the same punch, same form, same breath, again and again, until the body moves before the mind thinks. The basketball player practices free throws until muscle memory replaces thought. The martial artist repeats a single stance until it becomes part of their nervous system. It's not excitement that sharpens them, it's boredom embraced. Because in repetition, chaos dies and precision is born. Every rep carves away weakness. Every repetition rewires the brain for efficiency. Every boring moment is a seed of future dominance. Look at monks. Their lives revolve around repetition. They wake at the same time. They eat the same food. They meditate the same way. They repeat mantras until words dissolve into silence and discipline turns into peace. Why? Because repetition rewires the mind. The purpose of a mantra isn't the sound, it's the stillness it creates. The purpose of repetition isn't excitement, it's transcendence. Through endless repetition, the monk becomes free from distraction. Through endless repetition, you become free from weakness. The mind that can stay still through boredom can stay sharp through chaos. That's control. That's spiritual strength translated into action. Now think of a coder debugging the same line of code for hours, maybe days. To outsiders, it looks maddening, repetitive, dull, frustrating. But that's how mastery works. The coder isn't chasing excitement. They're chasing perfection. They know the breakthrough hides inside the repetition. Every line rechecked, every test rerun, every error faced again, all of it builds a deeper understanding. Repetition burns pattern recognition into their brain. They start seeing what others overlook because they stayed when others quit. That's what makes them dangerous. Not genius, but persistence. Repetition builds eyes that see what others miss. The truth is, boredom is your greatest test. Because boredom is the moment the ego whispers, "This isn't working. Move on. Try something new." That's when most people quit. Not because it's hard, but because it's repetitive. They crave novelty, not mastery. But the disciplined see boredom differently. They see it as a signal, a sign they're exactly where growth begins. Boredom is not the enemy. It's the doorway. If you can endure it, you evolve. If you can't, you repeat the same cycle of quitting forever. You've probably heard the phrase, champions don't rise to the occasion. They fall to the level of their training. That training is built on repetition. You can't fake calm in crisis. You can't improvise skill under pressure. You perform exactly as you've practiced. No more, no less. And if you've trained in repetition, your instincts take over. You don't hesitate. You don't flinch. You don't freeze. Because repetition has carved a neural highway between intention and action. That's what makes discipline automatic. Repetition until effort disappears. People talk about motivation, but motivation is a liar. Motivation fades with mood. Repetition ignores mood. Motivation says, "I feel like doing it." Discipline says, "I do it anyway." That's why repetition is control. It eliminates negotiation. You no longer ask, "Should I do this today?" You simply do it because it's who you are. That's identity-level discipline. You don't try to be fit. You are the kind of person who trains daily. You don't try to be focused. You're the kind of person who works without distraction. You don't try to be consistent. You are consistency personified. That's the power of repetition. It rewires who you are, not just what you do. There's a saying in Zen, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. It means the task doesn't change, your awareness does. You still do the same repetitions, but with deeper purpose and presence. When you accept repetition as the path, every action becomes meaningful. Every push-up, every page read, every hour of focused work, it compounds. Small, consistent actions done with precision and patience create unstoppable momentum. That's the law of compound discipline. Repetition multiplied by time equals transformation. No magic, no motivation, just repetition. Let's be honest, mastery is boring. That's why so few achieve it. Everyone wants the result. No one wants the routine. Everyone wants the spotlight. No one wants the shadow hours. But the shadow hours are where greatness is built, in the silence, in the repetition, in the days that feel the same. If you can love that, if you can find meaning in monotony, you become unstoppable. Because when others quit from boredom, you thrive in it. When others lose focus, you lock in deeper. When others chase novelty, you chase refinement. You outlast them, and outlasting is winning. Remember your mantra. Repeat it daily, especially when the process feels slow or pointless. Repetition is mastery. Repetition is identity. Repetition is control. Say it when you wake up early for the 100th time. Say it when you open your notebook again. Say it when you're tired, uninspired, and tempted to skip the work. Because repetition is not punishment, it's purification. Every repetition scrapes away weakness until only strength remains. Let this truth settle deep into you. The extraordinary is nothing but the ordinary done consistently over time. The genius is the one who never stopped refining the basics. The master is simply the beginner who didn't quit. So fall in love with boring. Honor repetition. Make monotony sacred. Because one day, what feels repetitive now will become effortless excellence. You'll look back and realize discipline didn't come from the exciting moments. It came from the silent hours you refused to skip. That's the hidden beauty of repetition. It doesn't just change your skill. It changes your soul. You've built discipline in chaos. You've learned to stay calm under fire. Now you've learned to stay consistent through boredom. But there's another enemy waiting, one that disguises itself as safety. Comfort. If boredom tests your endurance, comfort tests your ambition. And that's where we go next. Chapter 5. Detach from comfort. Comfort feels safe. Comfort feels warm. But comfort is the slowest poison you'll ever taste. It doesn't kill you instantly. It softens you over time. It dulls your edge. It blinds your awareness. It convinces you that staying still is the same as being safe. But safety is an illusion. Every time you choose comfort over challenge, you surrender a piece of your strength. Every time you say later, you train your mind to settle. And every time you choose what's easy, you lose the instinct to grow. Comfort weakens awareness. It's the silent assassin of ambition. Discipline begins where comfort ends. The disciplined mind doesn't run from friction. It seeks it, because friction keeps you alive. It keeps you alert. It keeps you awake. If your day feels too easy, you're slipping. If you wake up and never feel resistance, you're not progressing. You're stagnating. Comfort has you on a leash, and you're calling it peace. But comfort isn't peace. Comfort is sedation. Comfort is the mind going to sleep while pretending it's content. The disciplined mind understands this. The body needs rest, but the spirit needs resistance. Every time you take a cold shower, you're not testing your skin, you're testing your will. The moment you feel that icy sting, your body screams no. That's the test. That's where the battle happens, between command and comfort. Do you flinch and retreat? Or do you breathe, stay still, and take control? You're not doing it for the cold. You're doing it to prove who's in charge. Because if you can't control your response to cold water, how will you control yourself in chaos? Every cold shower is a message to your brain. I run this. You don't. The same principle applies to early mornings. When the alarm goes off, your mind instantly negotiates. 5 more minutes. Later. Tomorrow. But that moment, that exact second, defines your identity. Do you serve comfort or command it? Do you obey your feelings or your mission? You win your day in that first 5 seconds. Because discipline is not a schedule. It's a decision made daily, usually before sunrise. Hard choices are the weight room of the mind. Choosing to confront instead of avoid. Choosing to tell the truth instead of please. Choosing to sacrifice comfort now for strength later. Each decision is a repetition that strengthens mental muscle. But most people drop the weight before they get stronger. They call it balance. They call it listening to themselves. What they're really doing is just protecting their comfort. Discipline doesn't hate comfort. It just refuses to worship it. You use comfort to recover, not to live in it. You rest so you can rise sharper, not so you can stay resting. The disciplined mind knows if comfort runs your life, pain owns your future. Read that again. If comfort runs your life, pain owns your future. Because comfort steals your growth and life punishes stagnation. Avoid the pain of exercise today, and you'll face the pain of weakness tomorrow. Avoid the discomfort of honesty today, and you'll face the pain of regret tomorrow. Avoid the friction of effort today, and you'll face the pain of mediocrity tomorrow. Pain is always the debt collector of comfort. You can pay now, or you can pay double later. That's the law of life. You suffer either from discipline or from consequence. The disciplined choose their pain early, and therefore live free. The comfortable delay it, and therefore live enslaved. Look around. The world is built to keep you comfortable. One-click delivery, instant dopamine, infinite entertainment. You're surrounded by systems designed to make you passive. And every one of them whispers the same message. You deserve to relax. You've earned a break. Don't push so hard. That's the voice of decay. Because every time you accept it, you trade your freedom for comfort. And the more comfortable you become, the less capable you are of handling discomfort. The moment something goes wrong, a challenge, a loss, a setback, you crumble. Because your threshold for pain has disappeared. That's how comfort destroys warriors. It removes their resilience. The disciplined don't avoid comfort entirely. They just stay detached from it. They enjoy it when earned, but they never depend on it. That's the difference between indulgence and control. Detachment is power. When you can walk away from comfort, you own yourself. When you can say no to what's easy, you say yes to what matters. When you stop needing comfort, you become dangerous because no one can manipulate you through pleasure. A man or woman who doesn't need comfort is free. Free to act, free to endure, free to rise when others settle. Detachment doesn't mean denial. It means command. You choose when to rest. You choose when to indulge. You choose when to push. The undisciplined wait for the right feeling. The disciplined create it. Here's the truth. Comfort feels good now, but regret burns forever. That's why every small moment matters. Every time you push through the urge to stop, you're sharpening your edge. Every cold shower, every early morning, every disciplined meal, it's not about the act, it's about the message. The message is simple. I am not ruled by comfort. You train that truth daily through micro-resistance, little acts of rebellion against your weaker self. Wake up 5 minutes earlier. Take the stairs. Sit in silence without distraction. Say no to unnecessary indulgence. Tiny discomforts build massive discipline. You're not punishing yourself. You're preparing yourself. Because life will test you. And when it does, comfort won't save you. Discipline will. Repeat this until it's etched into your mind. Comfort kills progress. Friction fuels focus. Pain purifies purpose. You're not here to feel good. You're here to grow strong. You're not here to escape struggle. You're here to master it. And mastery only comes to those who can stay sharp when the world goes soft. That's the paradox of comfort. The more you chase it, the weaker you become. The more you resist it, the freer you feel. Detach from comfort, not because it's evil, but because it's seductive. It whispers promises it never delivers. It keeps you small, quiet, and safe until you realize safe is just another word for stuck. So stay uncomfortable. Stay hungry. Stay awake. Because the disciplined mind doesn't need comfort. It creates it through strength. You've learned to thrive in boredom. Now you've learned to detach from comfort. Next, we'll go deeper into the discipline of control. Not of your habits, but of your attention. Because the next battlefield isn't your body or your schedule. It's your focus. And in a world addicted to distraction, that's where the real war is fought. Chapter 6. Focus like a machine. Focus is the rarest form of power left in this world. Not strength, not speed, not talent. Focus. In a distracted age, attention is currency, and the disciplined mind spends it wisely. Most people are bankrupt. They leak attention through endless scrolling, constant switching, and emotional reactivity. Their mind is split into fragments, half working, half checking, half waiting for the next hit of dopamine. And here's the truth. You can't build an empire with a divided mind. You can't master your craft when you're addicted to noise. You can't control your life if you can't control your focus. Focus is freedom. When you control your focus, you control your time. When you control your time, you control your results. When you control your results, you control your life. That's the chain of command. And it all begins with one rule, the one-task rule. Finish what you start before chasing the next thing. Sounds simple, but it's not, because your brain hates it. Your brain wants novelty. It wants stimulation. It wants the quick hit of doing something new instead of finishing something hard. Every time you switch tasks midway, your brain rewards you with a burst of dopamine. Fake progress, false satisfaction. You feel productive, but you're just escaping discomfort. That's how mediocrity hides. Not in laziness, but in distraction disguised as activity. You don't need to do more. You need to finish what you start. Think of a sniper. He doesn't shoot at everything that moves. He locks onto one target, breathes, waits, and fires once, clean, precise, effective. That's how you must operate. One target, one task, one mission, because divided attention is diluted execution. And diluted execution leads to diluted results. The sniper doesn't rush the shot. He eliminates distractions, aligns his focus, and commits. That's how accuracy is born, through elimination, not addition. That's the rule. Eliminate, then execute. Focus is freedom. Say it again until it becomes your operating system. Eliminate, then execute. Focus is freedom. You don't need more hours. You need less noise. You don't need more tools. You need tighter focus. You don't need more motivation. You need fewer distractions. The average person starts 10 things and finishes none. They write 3 business plans, start 5 habits, quit 7 times, and wonder why nothing changes. The disciplined person starts 1, finishes 1, and wins. Because focus compounds. When you finish, you gain clarity. When you finish, you gain confidence. When you finish, you gain control. Each completed task strengthens the mental circuit of follow-through. Each unfinished task weakens it. Your brain learns from repetition, not theory. When you train it to complete, completion becomes instinct. When you train it to switch, distraction becomes reflex. You're always conditioning your focus, consciously or not. So how do you train to focus like a machine? First, eliminate. Remove everything that dilutes attention. Turn off notifications. Silence unnecessary voices. Declutter your workspace. Focus is not about doing more. It's about doing less with more precision. The disciplined mind operates like a laser, narrow, steady, lethal. A laser cuts through steel because its energy is concentrated. Your mind should work the same way. Every distraction, every tab, every ping, every open loop is a crack in your focus. Close the cracks. Eliminate noise before execution. Then execute. Once you start, commit until done. No tab switching. No multitasking. No dopamine breaks. You finish. Period. Even when it feels slow. Even when it feels boring. Even when the urge to check something hits, you finish. Because that's how you reclaim command from impulse. That's how you retrain your nervous system to obey purpose over pleasure. Multitasking is the enemy of mastery. It makes you fast at being average. You can't go deep when you're constantly switching lanes. Depth requires stillness. Depth requires endurance. Depth requires saying no to everything else. So stop bragging about how busy you are. Stop pretending productivity equals movement. It doesn't. It equals completion. Focus is not intensity for a moment. It's consistency over time. The machine doesn't think about excitement. It thinks about precision. It does one thing perfectly, then moves to the next. That's how you must think. That's how you must live. The world rewards finishers, not starters. No one gets paid for almost. No one remembers half done. No one respects potential that never became real. Your dreams mean nothing without execution. Your goals mean nothing without completion. Your words mean nothing without follow-through. Finish what you start, every time, especially when it's hard. Because discipline isn't about intensity, it's about consistency. And consistency lives inside focus. The scattered mind works hard and gets nowhere. The focused mind moves slow and wins forever. That's the paradox. Focus also protects your peace. Because distraction isn't just a productivity issue, it's an anxiety factory. The more tabs you have open, mentally and digitally, the heavier you feel. Every unfinished task drains mental energy. Every half-done project occupies psychic space. You can't feel calm when your brain is cluttered. You can't feel present when your attention is fragmented. Focus like a machine, and you'll find something rare: silence. Clarity. Control. That's the real gift of focus. Not just output, but inner stillness. When your mind stops chasing everything, it starts mastering something. That's where peace hides, in precision. Here's your mantra again. Burn it into your mind. Eliminate, then execute. Focus is freedom. Say it when you feel restless. Say it when you want to switch tasks. Say it when you're tempted to chase a new idea before finishing the old one. Because every time you obey that urge to switch, you weaken your command. But every time you stay, every time you finish, you strengthen your mind's obedience. That's how the disciplined brain is built. Through repetition, through completion, through control. You don't need to do everything. You need to do what matters completely. You've learned to control your body through boredom. You've learned to detach from comfort. And now, you've learned to command your focus like a machine. But discipline doesn't just live in silence or structure. It lives in restraint. Because once you master focus, you'll face a new test: when not to act. And that's the next step of control. Mastering your emotions when provoked, mastering your words when silence serves better. Chapter 7. The Silence of Strength. Silence is not weakness. Silence is control. The loudest one in the room is rarely the strongest. They're just the most insecure. True discipline doesn't broadcast. It builds. When you understand the silence of strength, you stop needing the world to clap for your progress. You stop begging for validation. You stop updating people who don't care. You stop explaining what you're about to do, because your actions already said enough. You have to understand this. Energy is currency. Every time you explain yourself, argue your worth, or chase validation, you spend that currency. And once it's gone, it's gone. You can't buy focus with approval. You can't purchase peace with applause. Silence saves that energy. Silence compounds that energy. Silence turns momentum into mastery. That's the key. The disciplined ones don't talk about what they'll do. They move in the dark. They grind in silence. They let the work echo for them. You'll notice something about the greats. They vanish before they rise. You stop hearing from them right before everything changes. That's not coincidence. That's focus in its purest form. The world rewards noise, likes, views, trends, attention. But real power? It doesn't need attention. It doesn't chase it. It commands it later, after the results are undeniable. When they talk, you build. When they post, you practice. Say it again. When they talk, you build. When they post, you practice. That's the code. Everyone wants to be seen. If you want to be built. But here's the truth. You can't do both at once. You can't build while constantly checking who's watching. Attention divides focus, and divided focus kills growth. You don't need their permission. You don't need their applause. You don't even need their understanding. The most disciplined people don't operate for approval. They operate for results. Remember this. The moment you need to prove something, you've already lost power. Because you've shifted your center from self to others. Silence brings it back home. Silence recenters your purpose. Silence reminds you, you're doing this for you. Silence sharpens awareness. You begin to see who's talking just to be seen. You begin to recognize noise for what it is, a distraction. Every tweet, every argument, every look at me post, it's the modern trap of false progress. It feels like action, but it's just activity. Don't fall for it. Powerful people live like shadows. You see their impact, not their noise. You feel their influence, not their words. They're building while the rest are broadcasting. You must adopt that mindset. When others overshare, you overtrain. When they announce, you advance. When they sleep, you plan. When they brag, you execute. That's the difference between attention seekers and achievers. One needs to be seen doing. The other just does. Stillness doesn't mean passivity. It means control. You are calm because you are confident. You are quiet because you're certain. You don't need to shout when you know. You don't need to defend when you embody. That's emotional dominance. That's internal order. That's power no one can fake. Monks understood this centuries ago. They trained in silence not just for peace, but for precision. Silence forces confrontation with your thoughts. It strips distraction. It creates depth. That's why great thinkers, athletes, warriors all have periods of retreat, silent spaces to sharpen. Because you can't hear the call of greatness through constant noise. You want to build mental strength? Stop broadcasting your every step. You want to build focus? Stop announcing your plans. You want to build discipline? Stop performing and start producing. When they talk, you build. When they post, you practice. Keep repeating it until it burns into your mind. You must learn to love being unseen. That's where transformation begins. The silence is uncomfortable. That's why it's sacred. When nobody claps, nobody congratulates, nobody sees you, you meet yourself. You learn what you're made of. You learn who's in control, you, or the need to be seen. That's why silence is strength. It's not about ego. It's about energy. Every second you're silent, you're training patience. Every hour you're quiet, you're building momentum. Every day you stay focused without validation, you become unstoppable. Discipline thrives in silence. Results shout later. You have a choice. Chase noise or build power. One gives temporary attention. The other gives permanent authority. The world's loud. Don't join the chorus. Be the stillness that makes others pay attention without you saying a word. You don't need noise to be noticed. You need results to be remembered. So stay silent. Stay steady. Stay dangerous. When they talk, you build. When they post, you practice. When they brag, you ascend. That's the silence of strength. You've learned to control your volume. Now it's time to control your vision. Chapter 8. Pain is the price of control. Everyone wants power. No one wants the price. But here's the truth. Control costs pain. You don't earn control through comfort. You earn it through confrontation with resistance, fatigue, and fear. Growth demands discomfort. The mind learns obedience only through endurance. You cannot command your body until you've shown it you'll act no matter how it feels. That's the key. Pain isn't punishment. Pain is payment. It's the toll that separates those who want from those who will. You have to rewire how you think about pain. Most people see pain as the stop sign. Discipline sees it as the signal. Now we're working. Pain means progress. Pain means you've reached the limit. And that limit is the doorway to control. Pain refines. Pain reveals. Pain resets. Say it again. Pain refines. Pain reveals. Pain resets. That's not just a mantra. It's a map. Pain refines. It burns away the weakness that talk never touches. You can't fake endurance. You can't shortcut resilience. You can't wish for toughness. You must bleed for it. Think of military selection. Navy SEALs, Marines, Commandos. The training isn't designed to teach them skills. It's designed to break them. To see who obeys the mission, even when the body screams stop. Pain becomes the filter. It refines the ones who remain. Pain reveals. It shows who you really are when the mask comes off. Anyone can act disciplined when it's easy. But when you're drenched in sweat, when your mind says quit, when every cell demands relief, that's when truth steps forward. Pain exposes character. Pain unmasks identity. Pain resets. It clears the clutter. When you're suffering, there's no room for noise. Pain focuses you. It drags you into the moment. It kills the ego and births awareness. After you survive it, you don't return the same. The reset is real, sharper, calmer, harder to break. Every athlete knows this. Ask a marathon runner what mile 20 feels like. Ask a fighter what round 5 tastes like. Ask a powerlifter who's hit failure 5 times before finally getting the rep. They'll all tell you the same thing. The pain was the teacher. The suffering built the stability. You don't need to run ultramarathons to understand. Pain is everywhere. Waking early when your bed begs you to stay. Finishing the task after everyone clocks out. saying no to the impulse that wants instant pleasure. These are the micro pains that forge macro control. You must stop avoiding discomfort, because every time you choose comfort, you surrender command. You hand over power to emotion. You become the servant of ease instead of the master of effort. If comfort runs your life, pain owns your future. That's not a metaphor. It's the law. Every easy choice compounds into regret. Every hard choice compounds into strength. Entrepreneurs live this daily. They endure sleepless nights, uncertainty, and failure. But what separates them from dreamers is simple. They stay in the fight. They adapt under pressure. They learn to breathe in chaos. Pain is not an interruption. It's information. It's feedback from the battlefield of life. The disciplined mind doesn't chase comfort. It hunts control. And control only exists on the far side of pain. Understand this. Pain is not your enemy. Weakness is. Pain is the process that destroys it. Pain is the coach that demands more. Pain is the drill sergeant that screams the truth. Pain refines. Pain reveals. Pain resets. Every time you feel discomfort, you're being given a test, a moment to either obey the mission or obey the emotion. Every repetition, every rejection, every failure is asking you one question. Who's in charge? When you push through pain, you tell the world and your mind that you are. That's control. That's discipline. That's power. Stop running from the burn. Feel it. Study it. Learn from it. Pain is data. It tells you where you're weak. It tells you where to focus. The people who avoid it never evolve. The people who embrace it dominate. Think of a blacksmith. Steel doesn't strengthen in the shade. It strengthens in the fire. Every strike, every flame, every hit makes it unbreakable. You're no different. The heat doesn't destroy you. It defines you. Pain is the great equalizer. It doesn't care about your background, your wealth, your talent. It only cares about your threshold. The question isn't, do you hurt? The question is, do you keep going? That's how you earn control, not over the world, but over yourself. Because once you can command yourself under pain, there's nothing left to fear. Pain becomes a familiar language. You stop running from it. You start using it. Discipline is pain directed toward purpose. Don't pray for the struggle to end. Pray for the strength to stay inside it until it molds you. The ones who learn to work with pain become unstoppable. They don't break, they bend. They don't retreat, they recalibrate. Pain is not the enemy. Pain is the entrance fee. If you can endure it, you can master yourself. If you can master yourself, you can control your life. So the next time you face the storm, don't flinch. Don't complain. Don't retreat. Repeat the truth. Pain refines. Pain reveals. Pain resets. Say it until it becomes your armor. Because pain isn't here to punish you. It's here to prepare you. And when you finally understand that, you'll stop fearing it. You'll start commanding it. That's the price of control. And it's worth every drop. You've learned to face the pain. Now it's time to face the chaos. Chapter 9. Build systems, not feelings. Feelings fluctuate. Systems don't. That's the truth most people never learn. And that's why they never stay consistent. Motivation fades. Inspiration dies. Emotion changes by the hour. You can't build a disciplined life on something that shifts with the weather. You need a structure that holds you when your mind doesn't. That structure is your system. You don't rise to your goals. You fall to your systems. Repeat that until it becomes a law in your head. You don't rise to your goals. You fall to your systems. Because goals are dreams with no backbone. Systems are the backbone that hold your life in place when everything else wobbles. This is what I call discipline architecture. You design your life like an engineer. Every piece supports execution, not emotion. Let's make it simple. A goal says, I want to be disciplined. A system says, here's what I do every morning without fail, whether I feel like it or not. That's the difference between talk and transformation. Think about professional athletes. They don't wake up asking if they feel like training. The system already decided. The schedule already rules. The decision was made months ago. All that's left is obedience. That's how discipline works. You remove decision fatigue. You replace choice with ritual. Systems protect you from yourself. You're not fighting laziness. You're fighting indecision. You're not weak. You're unstructured. Let's build the structure. Start with structured mornings. Your morning is the control center of your mind. You win it. You win the day. Don't wait for energy. Create it. Wake at the same time. Move your body. Plan your tasks. Touch cold water. Do it every day until your brain associates morning with motion. That's the first pillar of your discipline architecture. Consistency before emotion. Next, build time blocks. You don't manage time. You command it. Divide your day into clear blocks. Focus, recovery, reflection. During focus blocks, nothing else exists. No phone, no scroll, no noise. The rule is simple. Eliminate, then execute. During recovery blocks, rest completely. Because recovery is not laziness. It's part of the system. You can't sustain performance without renewal. Then use environmental cues. Your surroundings either trigger chaos or reinforce control. Design them to serve you. If you want to focus, clean your space. If you want to work out, keep your gear visible. If you want to read more, leave books where your eyes rest. Your environment should remind you of who you're becoming, not what you're escaping. That's system thinking. Discipline isn't about waking up every day with fire in your chest. It's about waking up and following the blueprint you built when your mind was clear. You don't have to feel strong to act strong. You just have to obey the system. When your system is strong enough, emotion becomes irrelevant. You're tired? The system runs. You're unmotivated? The system runs. You're angry, sad, or lost? The system runs. The disciplined don't rely on emotion. They rely on architecture. You can tell the difference in how people live. The undisciplined live by impulse. Every day, they rebuild their motivation from zero. The disciplined live by structure. They automate success. They free their minds by programming their behavior. That's the real freedom. Structure creates freedom. It's the paradox most people never grasp. They think rules restrict them. But in truth, rules release them from the chaos of indecision, from the burden of constant choice. Because discipline isn't restriction, it's protection. When you have systems, you don't waste energy deciding. You just do. It's like a pilot flying through turbulence. The sky is chaotic, but the system remains steady. The checklists, the instruments, the procedures, they don't change just because the weather does. The pilot doesn't rely on feeling. He relies on training. Your life should be the same. You can't control the emotional weather, but you can control your cockpit. You can build procedures that fly you through storms without losing altitude. And this is where most people fail. They keep chasing motivation instead of building automation. They think they'll change when they feel different, but feeling follows action, not the other way around. You start, then you feel ready. You act, then you gain confidence. You move, then momentum arrives. Action creates clarity. Clarity creates strength. Strength destroys excuses. That's the loop. That's the machine. You don't need to build your life around excitement. You need to build it around execution. You don't need to chase energy. You need to engineer consistency. Ask yourself, what if your discipline didn't depend on how you felt? What if your actions were automatic, predictable, unstoppable? That's not fantasy. That's system mastery. Because the truth is, discipline isn't willpower. Willpower is emotional. It burns out. Systems are structural. They last. Stop waiting to feel ready. Build a routine that doesn't care. Build a structure that moves without negotiation. It's not about emotion. It's about architecture. You're not a victim of your feelings. You're an engineer of your habits. Rebuild your mornings. Redesign your space. Restructure your time. Replace chaos with consistency. You don't rise to your goals. You fall to your systems. And when your systems are solid, even on your weakest days, you'll still move forward. That's real discipline, not fueled by emotion, but enforced by design. When the world gets loud, systems stay silent. When motivation fades, systems stay faithful. When you crumble, systems carry you. You've learned to build systems that serve your discipline. Now it's time to master the next truth. Control isn't about resistance. It's about flow. Chapter 10. The Code of Unbreakable Discipline. This is where everything comes together. the lessons, the pain, the systems, the silence. This is the code of unbreakable discipline. It's not a quote. It's not a mindset hack. It's a way of life. Control, consistency, calm, clarity, command. These are the 5 pillars that separate the strong from the soft, the committed from the comfortable. Say them again. Control, consistency, calm, clarity, command. That's the architecture of an unbreakable mind. You've learned this throughout every chapter. Discipline is not about doing more. It's about being in command. Command over emotion. Command over thought. Command over time. Command over self. Let's break the code piece by piece. 1. Control. It begins where everything begins, control. The foundation of every disciplined life is the ability to govern yourself. Control is not suppression, it's direction. You don't silence emotion, you command it. You don't fight fear, you lead through it. Remember Chapter 3. Emotional control is a weapon. You don't react to the storm. You hold the line under fire. You move anyway. Control means you are the master, not the puppet. You decide what gets attention, what gets energy, what gets done. Without control, everything else collapses. With control, everything else aligns. That's the key. 2. Consistency. Control is the engine. Consistency is the fuel. Discipline doesn't live in intensity. It lives in repetition. The quiet, daily repetition that no one sees and everyone underestimates. You learn this in the power of boring repetition. You don't rise in excitement. You rise in monotony. You rise in showing up again and again, even when it's dull, even when it's thankless. Repetition is mastery. Repetition is identity. Repetition is control. That's how you become bulletproof, by doing what others won't, until it becomes who you are. 3. Calm. Calm is not weakness. Calm is command. A still mind is a strategic mind. A calm presence is an unshakable presence. When chaos hits, most people panic. The discipline breathe. You learn this in the silence of strength. Power doesn't need to broadcast itself. It doesn't need validation. When they talk, you build. When they post, you practice. Calm isn't silence. Calm is precision. It's energy without waste. It's control without noise. That's what separates warriors from worriers. The ability to stay still while everything burns. For clarity. Without clarity, you drown in distraction. Focus is freedom. Attention is currency. You learn this in Focus Like a Machine. Eliminate, then execute. That's the mantra. Discipline thrives on direction. You can't hit a target you can't see. Clarity means you know the mission. Every action, every system, every choice must serve it. Clarity is what turns motion into momentum. Without it, you waste effort on noise. The disciplined don't chase, they choose. Clarity cuts confusion. Clarity removes emotion. Clarity gives you control. 5. Command. This is the highest form of discipline, command. Command of thought, command of energy, command of execution. When you build systems instead of relying on feelings, you move like a machine. When pain arrives, you don't collapse, you convert it. When failure hits, you don't freeze, you adapt. Command means you've internalized discipline so deeply that it's no longer what you do. It's who you are. You've built the architecture. You've trained the muscle. Now, your actions are automatic. Your standards are non-negotiable. You have command. That's the full code. Control, consistency, calm, clarity, command. These are not lessons, they are laws. And once you live by them, you don't need to fight for discipline anymore. You become disciplined, because discipline, at its core, isn't about willpower. It's about identity. You don't act disciplined to become strong. You act disciplined because you are strong. That's the transformation. When you reach this stage, you stop needing motivation. You stop seeking permission. You stop chasing moods. You move with precision. You act without delay. You live without apology. This is the mind of warriors. This is the power of builders. This is the calm of leaders. Discipline is the bridge between chaos and control, between emotion and action, between who you were and who you are becoming. You have to understand this. Every repetition rewires identity. Every time you act with discipline, You prove to your brain that you are in control. Every time you follow your system, you rewrite your story. You don't need to feel ready. You need to start. You don't need to feel confident. You need to move. You don't need to feel disciplined. You need to repeat. Because the truth is simple. You are not what you feel. You are what you repeat. Say it again. You are not what you feel. You are what you repeat. That is the heartbeat of unbreakable discipline. Every choice reinforces identity. Every repetition builds armor. Every act of control is a message to your future. I am in charge now. And once you master this, there's no turning back. You stop chasing balance. You start building dominance. You stop surviving days. You start designing them. You stop depending on hope. You start depending on habits. This is the end of excuses. This is the beginning of power. You don't need to feel ready anymore. You already are. You don't need to seek strength anymore. You're building it with every act of obedience to the code. Control, consistency, calm, clarity, command. That's your code now. That's your armor. That's your discipline. You are not what you feel. You are what you repeat. So repeat control. Repeat focus. Repeat silence. Repeat strength until it's no longer repetition. It's identity. That's the code of unbreakable discipline. And it's yours now. Discipline isn't punishment. It's power. You have learned that emotion doesn't decide your future. Repetition does. You've learned that motivation fades, but structure survives. You've learned that silence speaks louder than chaos, and pain sharpens your focus. Every morning from now on, you have two choices: obey your feelings or obey your purpose. One builds weakness. The other builds a legacy. Stop waiting for permission. Stop negotiating with laziness. Stop letting the mind that doubts you control the life that needs you. From this day forward, you are the commander. Stand up. Take control. Execute your blueprint. Discipline is not what you do. It's who you become.